Thanks, Marshall. Well, welcome everyone to today's office hours. My name is Gary Gruber. I'll be your question reader today, and Alex will be driving, and we have Martha and Brandy to answer questions. Angela's out on a well-deserved vacation day. She'll be back tomorrow, and we don't have a lot to say about updates. Angela's the guru on all those. I know she promised a lot of things we're hoping to be in this week, but we're probably not going to be able to go over all those because she's the knowledge master of that stuff. But Martha, did you have anything you wanted to add? Not hearing you, Martha.
Oh,
now we are.
I do not have anything more to add. Sorry. We'll see how many people ask. Will this be ready? Will this be good? Because we're going to say, I don't know.
Yeah. So how this is going to work and how it does, most of you are regulars. We ask you put your questions into the chat box and number them so we can get through all the first questions. And then if there's additional questions, we can go back and go over those. I'll read the questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Again, if you're asking about when something's going to be resolved, we might not be able to answer you today. We'll see. So then we will go from there. So we're going to start right off. We have one question from Geeta. I have a student who tried to harm herself. Do we add this under discipline incident?
There's ed code of the specific types of offenses that you're supposed to report. And I don't recall this being an offense.
I don't either.
I don't know if Brandy knows the ed code by heart, but it's ed code 58900 and 58915. And so there's a list right here on the screen that from the code sets.
48900 and 48915.
Yes. Of all of the possible reportable offenses that we would expect. And so if it's not here, then you don't need to report it to CALPADS. Now, that's not to say that you don't somehow log it in your SIS. I think you need to talk to your administrators to understand what's reported in the SIS versus what CALPADS needs. And this is not something that CALPADS needs.
I mean, the closest that are aligned. So I don't know who's driving. Is it Alex?
Alex.
Are you driving? Okay. So if you look at physical injury or threatening, you will see in the definitions that it specifically says towards another person, right? So it does not look like self-harm is included in those ed code definitions.
Okay. Next question from Ethan.
Wait, just real quick, because she had a follow-up, and since we're on this page, Alex, how did you get to this code set?
Oh, good point.
These are available. I don't think that this is part of the footer. No, but if you go to CDE's webpage for CALPADS, there's system documentation, and I'll put the link on the chat. And in the system documentation, you have CFS, error list, data guide, and in here there's code set right here. Thank you. Right there.
And then when you're in the code sets, there's a bunch of, it's one tab, but you have to find out which code set you're looking for. And so we knew this had to do with the offenses. So that's where because there's probably like 50 different code sets there. So yeah, and the CFS tells you what code set it's using. Okay.
And she says, thank you. Okay, so Ethan says, or asks, are any SPED or SSRV fatal end of year certification errors live right now? I noticed some were showing up as EOY4 warnings. Is it safe to say that those will become fatal cert errors at some point, or so we should start trying to resolve them now?
The legacy cert errors are live if you have the data in there. What we will be doing is adding some additional ones that used to be input validation rules in the legacy system, but we're not doing them at input anymore. So there'll be more to come, Ethan. So there are some right now, but there'll be more. So if you want to get a head start, you could start resolving some of the existing fatal certs that you have.
Okay, from Kim, one of our districts isn't showing under our CELPA for end of year 4. We sent in a ticket and the person said you probably haven't entered any end of year 4 information, but we have unloaded SPED transactions. Uploaded, I'm sure, I think that means. This has never happened with any other district, so we're not sure if we're missing something.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to send up data for it to show under EOI 4. So Kim, I will, if you put in chat what the ticket number is, and I'll follow up.
Okay, from Suzanne, as a TK through 6th grade district, I'm ready to certify end of year 1. After checking all the aggregate reports, there is no box to check to certify. Am I missing something? No, it's not turned on. I don't know if Martha wants to expand on that.
What timestamp? Whose question did you read?
From Suzanne,
Okay.
304. She's ready to certify end of year 1, but there's no button.
Yeah, so as it was noted in either the listserv or the flash, I forget which, I think it was the flash, we have not enabled the ability for LEAs to certify any of their EOI submissions because we still need to add in the new data discrepancy certification validations. So it's true, Suzanne, that you're a TK6 and that EOI 1 is grade 7 through 12, so you shouldn't really have to approve that at all. But everybody will be delayed in their ability to certify because we haven't yet implemented all of the pieces to the certification process. So just stay tuned and we will communicate when we have enabled the certification process.
Okay, from Jan, is the CDE going to send out an official flash or other communication on the need to break out extract files? We were just talking about this. SNR to send deletes, exits, and updates as a separate files. And I believe there is a communication, but it's not out yet.
Correct. We're working on it, Jan. I think requirements keeps coming across new scenarios, and so we don't want to put something out that isn't encompassing. So it's getting very close. Sorry for the long delay. I don't know, Brandy, if you want to add anything.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Okay, at 3:07, Alex posted the link for the system documents. Question from Nancy, is report 16.11 required to be certified in end of year 4? It is only listed under fall 1 on the report mapping guides in the user manual, but I saw somewhere else that 16.11 was also required for end of year 4. Thanks.
I think it's the supporting report. Isn't that the comparison, the annual comparison?
Right, and you're not required to certify it, but SUBLAs and LEA should review it.
Okay. Ethan has a follow-up to his question 1, which is about
I think EOI 4, we changed some of the SPED cert errors to be warnings in one submission and then fatal in another. So definitely 132 is fatal in fall, but I believe it becomes a warning in EOI, right, Brandy?
It does become a warning in the end of year. Yeah, it's fatal in fall.
So that's why, Ethan. It's just when we go from one submission to another, there's certain reasons why it becomes a fatal and then it becomes a warning. So, and yes, it will be a fatal again come fall. So even though you see it as a warning, you may want to get a head start and make sure that, it gets taken care of so it won't be a fatal in fall 1.
Okay. From Larney, are we good to do a merge SSID now? RLA is still within the testing window. Thank you.
Not if you're
I
in the
would-
testing window.
Mm-mm.
From
Not
Shanna,
until you're-
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Not until your testing window closes.
Okay. From Shanna, I have a student who stopped attending in April. They were not SARBed because it was too late in the year to get them on schedule. What code do I use to exit them for end of year? E140. We don't know where the student went.
What is 400?
I think 400 is limited now to only specific grade levels. So you're probably going to have to use. Yeah. Do not use. Yeah. So you can't really use E400. I would just use E140 because the student is truant.
So even though you didn't SARB them, you can still use you for 140.
Right. The student is going to have to be SARBed. If they can't be found even next year, they're going to have to get them on the calendar. They can't just.
I see.
Okay. Eugenia asks, I'm sorry I came in late. Did I miss any important announcements? We didn't really have any important announcements today. Angela's out on vacation and she's usually the one that knows, has the details on patch releases and everything that's going in. I know last Friday she did say, went through the list of a lot of things that we were hoping were going in this week. And as far as I know, they still are, but she's the one that has access to that data. Chris asks, is there information somewhere on how to handle suspensions on or near the end of school? Administrators want suspension days to carry over to the first few days of the school next year. I know this has been discussed in the past, but having trouble finding that information.
Is that an FAQ anywhere?
I don't know that it's in.
Cert 127 on the if you search for that in the CalPADS FAQ, I think describes it. If you type suspension, I think you get like 12 results.
Is this the one you're talking about, Nate?
Yeah, I think that's what the question refers to.
Occurred in the current academic year, but the suspension will be carried out in the subsequent academic year. Right on, Nate. You must be studying your material for your training.
I might have been preparing, yes.
So does this help, Chris?
Yes. Okay, from Sharon, I had no issues sending up my SCNR this morning. However, I sent it back up at noon and it is still validating. So going on 3 hours now. Oh, that's not good. Assume it's because of heavier traffic this afternoon and not an issue with the SCNR getting hung up like it did a few weeks ago. Have you heard from others that their SCNR is getting stuck in staging validation again? We get this every once in a while. Even if the system is heavier traffic, it should still not be taking 3 hours with a new redesign. It's much more speeder, but we do get every once in a while, for some reason, some get stuck. We can try to re-get them going.
But they try to monitor it as well. So, maybe send in a ticket so we can take a look.
From Doug, for end of year, the SPED PSTS records, what should the academic year be? We are submitting now 2021, 2022, but the year these records are for 2020, 2021. Well, the ones for this year should be 2021, 2022 for students that left last year in 2020, 2021.
So the academic year represents the year you're reporting it, even though it's you surveyed the kids from last year. It's still the 21, 22 academic year.
From Terry, is CDE still reviewing the certification date for end of year, or are they holding LEAs to the August 26th date?
Right now, it's still the 26th.
From Daniela, sorry about that. Our CASE schools were instructed to stop pushing SPED data to CALPADS. Is it safe to begin pushing data to CALPADS?
Well, there's limitations, and I believe it was Flash 2222 that says what files, you can be sending up. SPED, we did have some IVRs that were causing problems, so it wasn't helpful to send it up, but one did get fixed last week. So I don't know if Alex or Gary, you're more familiar. Are we having any issues with SPED or SSRV? Can they start sending up their SPED data?
I've seen people submit their SPED files successfully.
We've said if they're sending some up but getting errors on some, just send up the one, take those out and send up the ones that aren't getting errors.
I don't think that they can do that in SPED, right? Because it comes from the API. So I don't think they have that ability to intercept and modify it. So if you look at what was fixed, Daniela, and also see what are the remaining outstanding errors, I think you can get some data in. Just be aware there may be some IVRs that you still have to wait for us to get fixed.
And Alex is showing on the screen that and the known issues, the top portion is the fix, and you can just search for SPED and you can see all the ones that have been fixed. And there was quite a few.
So I would say maybe give it a try and see what errors out.
Okay, from Scott, I'm sorry I got on late. Is there an issue causing the CSIS 509?
I recall that being an existing known issue.
507. There's something on the 509. I don't think it's an issue. I can't remember. If I wasn't hosting this, I could go look, but I had a ticket on the 509 that I worked on last week.
I could take a look. It's the CSIS.
CSIS 0509. And I thought I was able to answer the question that the ticket was about. May or may not be related.
Was it the one that had 0 instead of blank?
Yeah, 0 duration days. The 509 is, there's quite a few on there.
I'm getting mixed up with the 507, I think.
But people have been sending in tickets on the 509, and you did respond. I thought. What I say? I don't
so many tickets.
No,
there isn't a known. There's no known issue on it. So.
Well, Scott, submit another ticket, put in my name, and I can research it for you. And it may be a new issue, or maybe I'll be able to figure out the answer. From Shelley, I have a student that is showing up with a fatal CERT 144, the SPED record missing for student enrollment at an MPS school. And it is not a known issue. However, the student left our district in 2014. Oh boy, that does sound like it will be an issue. So if it isn't already an issue, go ahead and submit a ticket for that one, and we will get that one written up. From Heather, PS students pending evaluation. We have been enrolling the students as enrollment 50, and then when the PS student is deemed eligible, we exit with an E170 and then change them to an enrollment 10 in primary. It was brought to our attention that this might not be accurate. we looked up the documentation. It seems like we should be enrolling pending evaluation PS students with a 10, even though they are non-ADA until they are deemed eligible. Can you please let me know what is the correct process for enrollment for a pending evaluation preschool student? And Alex is showing you on the screen that it should be enrollment status 10 primary. And that's the FAQ.
Hey, Gary, going back to Scott's question
Yes.
about, there was a ticket that Power School is, I think, leaving it blank or putting in a 0, and the system's not liking it. So there is something going on with 509 in Power School.
Maybe that's what it was. Yep.
But still send in the ticket and we'll give you the lowdown.
Okay. Brittany says with SACE, you can select which transaction. Oh, okay. With SACE, you can select which transactions to submit through the API.
So the ones causing error, you just say do not report, and then it's not in your extract,
Yep.
I guess.
Judy says, regarding posting SPED files, yes, we are able to not report those within errors, and then she has been able to submit files successfully.
Thanks for that, Judy.
Ethan says he was getting a CSIS 509 if the incident duration days was populated with 0.00 for incident type 300s. And Scott said all 300s are getting rejected even though they have no duration days. I thought that was a bug for some reason.
So they're blank in Power School, but the extract is putting in 0s. And it worked last year, but it doesn't this year. Something like that. So I don't know if that's the same situation for you, Scott.
Rebecca says, please confirm, is it a known issue for CSIS 507? There is an issue for 507. I think it's scheduled to be fixed this week, but I can't guarantee that. Okay. A lot more talk about the 509 in Power School. Actually, that's what everyone's talking about. Power School is putting a 0, reached out to their support team and showed them a copy of the CALPADS ticket. A lot of people are experiencing that issue. So it sounds like Power School needs to fix something. Okay, 324. And Infinite Campus as well, Cami says.
So apparently, previously, we would handle it okay, but this year we're not.
Blake says, how are districts ready to certify? I have not been able to upload many of my files. What should we be able to do in the system currently? Also, my SCNR is hung up in validating too.
I think, Blake, some of the smaller schools and typically elementaries have an easier time with the end of year submissions. One, they don't typically do EOY 1, but they could certify it to say, yeah, we have no kids in grade 7 and 8 to report course completion. And maybe they don't have any kids with EOY 2 because, you know, they're so small that they're not participating in some of those programs that are listed there. And maybe they have no incidents. I don't know. So sometimes it is easier for the smaller schools to get done with EOY early. But you can't, nobody can certify at this point because we have that functionality turned off. And so when you ask, what is it that you can do? You know, put up your files, and if they're getting rejected, that you can start cleaning your data. That's what you can get ahead of, because some of the validation rules are legitimate, and you do need to clean up your data in order for that file to get to the point that it can post. So that's what you can be working on, making sure that you can get your files posted and clear all of the rejected errors.
Jen says perhaps the CSIS 509 is the same sort of issue where the system isn't accepting a blank and wants the explicit encode, which was different for the legacy system. So I'm not sure about that, but sounds like the vendors are aware of the issue and hopefully are working on it. Okay. Heather has a question too, and since we're not having very many questions, we're just going to go ahead and answer any question. In regards to the preschool enrollment being a 10 primary, what should be reported in CALPADS from the date of parent consent to the date of eligibility? For example, if we pull an SSID on 5/4 and the student is eligible and starts receiving services on 5/30, what should happen to the enrollment from 5/4 to 5/30? Is it left in CALPADS, or are we supposed to backtrack once the student becomes eligible?
You can leave the enrollment alone. I mean, you don't have to close it or anything like that. If the student becomes eligible, then what you need to kind of think of enrollments for students, particularly preschool students that sometimes are only going to receive services and they actually won't be attending school, is that the enrollment is just an acknowledgement of responsibility. It doesn't really, in those cases, reflect, attendance per se. It's, I am responsible for this student between these dates. And so in that case, you just leave it alone.
Jan says there was a known issue was for the course completion file. Madhuri asks, when can we expect to see a revised data guide?
Ugh.
Good question.
In a while, in a long while. I don't know if we'll be able to get it out in the next 6 months. We've made several attempts, but things keep changing on us.
Yeah, it's 2.5 years old now. Nancy asks, can I get an update on the STEM error? Will it be fixed with Tuesday's build? Do we only have one STEM error?
Guess so.
You guys remember if Angela said that was going in on Tuesday?
57252. I'll look it up.
Chris says, is there a known cert 4 error with ethnicity race data? I have a student with ethnicity race data in CALPADS and is still getting the cert 004. We do have a known issue on the cert 004. That's when no SSID is listed though. So if you're getting one with an SSID that's listed, put in a ticket and let us look into it. But we were getting some cert 004s for some reason, but then later in the day, if you checked with a new revision, they were gone. So it could be that, or it could be something else. So put in a ticket and we can investigate.
So going back to Nancy's question about the STEM, it looks like it is targeted for tomorrow's release.
Yes.
But I can't guarantee it.
No
I can just say
guarantees.
it's targeted.
Arena says, we have some preschool age students who come for special ed assessment. We enroll them as a parent consent day in May, but their IEP will be finalized in the summer. They will start receiving services in August when the new school year starts. Could you remind us how we should report their enrollment and IEP?
Isn't that
Alex is
similar to
showing-
what you just answered? Preschool age
Sure.
students.
No, this is all in Flash 207. So there's a whole section on this.
There you go.
So you're meetings, but the plans won't actually be effective till the.
Oh,
So Irina, you need to read this Flash because it depends on what you decide to do.
and then send in a ticket if you have specific questions on what you read.
Madhuri asks, do we need to close the LIP programs? There's something in the data guide.
I thought we do auto close them. Yeah.
There you go. In the right column there under should LAs close these records, It says, no, these records should not be closed annually for returning students if the student will continue in the same program the following year. For students exiting the school, these records may, but are not required to be closed. Sharon asks, our school year has ended and testing is complete. Are we good to resolve all mids and then download replacement SSIDs? Can we trust the data, or is it better to wait a bit?
Yes, you can resolve your mids since testing is complete. Can you trust the data? We still have some outstanding bugs. And not all of the bugs happen to everybody. So sometimes it works smoothly, and then sometimes there's complications. So I don't know if that helps you make a decision or not, Sharon.
Ethan asks, I have opened a ticket, but for your information, I got the GUR 5 on SIMP day because the extract included a retired SSID. Changing to the new SSID on the extract fixed it. Want a ticket?
No,
We
don't want it. I don't think so if the problem's gone away.
And also the extract was generated by the SIS, right? So it would be something in the SIS that had the retired SSID.
Yeah. Larnie asks, can we get clarification on the notice from Tom's action needed update CAF's student eligibility in CALPADS? We have one student we exited with a future date of 6/16/2022 with SPED certificate. Is this the reason we are getting the notification? I thought that when we got this notification, we verified that there's an enrollment and overlapping SPED record. Is this correct?
So I think so the reason you get that notification from ETS is because generally what happens is a student went from SPED to not SPED. And so that's very likely what it is, because the extract is looking for an exit date. It's not actually looking at the date itself. So if you change that IDEA indicator and the student is still going through testing learning, that's going to be a problem. So, but I'd have to know the specific SSID to look at what it's doing in the POMS export.
Okay, Terry asks, is it correct that it is not necessary to report course completion for 7th and 8th grade students unless we want to? Yes, it's not required. It's permitted, but not required. I always do, but for others that are ready to certify, they may not be sending files for those students. I have 0 fatal errors until I send those files up. For now, they are just warnings.
It's in the CalPADS file specification in the Word doc where we have the table by grade and by school type, what data is required and what data is permitted. So you'll see there that grade 7 and 8. And I think it's also in the data guide that indicates, you know, if you have the data and you want to report it, great. But if you don't, no harm.
I think that's table 2.1 or 2-1 in the CFS document version. Vini, if a student is evaluated for SPED and qualifies, but this parent refuses services, should the student have a SPED record in CalPADS even though no services were provided?
Yes. So there's a option when you're selecting plan type, and the plan type is eligible parent declined. So plan type 700. So yes, you should. That just tells the department that you made the offer of FAPE.
Okay. And asks, we are going to target our end of year submission, but we can't guarantee it. And
Touche and touche.
Kyron posted the LIP program start end dates. Question or information about that. Litania asks, snapshot report 14.1 is not giving me any information. I need this information for LCAP reporting. Do we have a defect on 14.1?
That. Oh no, that's EOI 3.
Oh, I
It's an
thought it
EOI
was the-
4.
I thought it was the WBLR, but I guess not, huh?
Yeah, the end of year 4 reports are running, but they're blank. We have a defect on that.
It was EOI 3, isn't it?
Oh, is it
Uh,
3?
Yeah, absenteeism is an EOI 3.
Oh, 3. What it looked like you were looking at 4 for some reason.
I wanted to see if it was
Oh, okay.
in EOI 4. But there is a bug on 14.1.
Ah. Ethan has a follow-up. I thought retired SSIDs on extracts should still process correctly without the GER5. So I think it's a bug you may want to fix. My personal fix involved manual extract corrections and even CSIS SSID update.
I thought there was a change. I mean, and Brandy, I don't know if you remember this. At first, we would reject it if it was retired and expected you to fix it, but then later the system was handling retired SSIDs. Do you recall that? That we were replacing it in the extract? At first we weren't, and
Well,
then we started to?
Well, my understanding was that the retired SSIDs were appearing in the extract. It's just we didn't realize they were, but they weren't telling you that they were replaced. Am I making sense?
I think it was when he talks about extracts, it's his SIS extracts have retired SSIDs in them. And when they upload it, a retired SSID used to fail, but now it replaces it, but it doesn't tell you that.
Right. That
That's
is,
what you were saying? Okay.
wow. Right. So, and I was thinking of the SSID extract actually, but it's the same thing. So if you send up an retired SSID, CALPADS actually processes that, replaces it with the focus ID, the replacement SSID, but doesn't tell you that the SSID is retired. Yeah, that's correct.
So he's getting the GER5. So
On
something's
retired.
not working.
Yeah. If they're
Okay.
retired and he's getting a GER5, then yeah, something's not working.
All right. Well, we'll need a ticket and we'll get it written up then. Karen at 3:35 posted when to submit a student course completion records for end of year 1 link. Also says regarding mids, currently I'm seeing that the data on the mid detail modal is showing demographic info from the focus SSID for both students, making them look identical, even though the matching SSID has a different middle name and different guardians.
I think there's
Is that
a
defect.
new defect on that.
Yeah, Angela logged that last week. Right there, 6154. Kim asks, our LAA is getting a Cert 132 student enrolled in an LAA with no active SPED record in our LAA for a COE court school student with a 1-day enrollment. Do we report SPED service records for students with a 1-day enrollment? Sometimes these kiddos are enrolled and disenrolled on the same day. Currently, the student has a primary enrollment in our LAA. Would I change the primary enrollment to a short-term enrollment in CALPADS?
The expectation, right, Brandy, is they're supposed to report SPED even for 1 day, right?
Yeah, but Cert 132 is a warning.
In EOI, but won't it show up as a for fall 1?
Not
Show
if it
up as a
doesn't
fail.
overlap.
So yes, Kim, you being a county office, when they come to you, it should be short-term, and then the other traditional school has them as a primary.
Marnie has a question. Are 16 dot reports, I like how she wrote 16 dot, reports are showing 0 counts. Is that just us, or no counts are available for any LEA at this point? If it is just us, what is the cause of the 0 counts? So the SPED reports?
All the EOY reports show zeros. They're rendered, but they have no data. So Larnie,
Okay.
do you know how to get to the known issues report there, the bottom of the CalPads? You look that up and then scroll to the active, you'll see probably a lot of the things that you're encountering are already identified. And you can do a search, right? If you do a control F and you're on this page, do a control F, you know, type in whatever that key search word is, and you can quickly look, find things.
So Kim's asking about the year 4 reports too, and it is 6155 that Alex is showing on the screen. Yep, she says that.
So we didn't number them as 16 dot. We just said EOI 4 all reports. So slightly different twist. And we do refresh this a couple of times during the day. So you want to be sure that you refresh it as well.
Oh, I hadn't.
Doug has a question. Related to 6105 and Friday afternoon's communication, is there any update on the timeline of when we can start submitting the programmers?
After we get the fix in. And when that timeline is, I believe the notification indicated possibly this week or next weekend. And I couldn't tell you if we're on track for during the week, or it's likely it's going to be on over the weekend, because it was a very lengthy
Process.
yeah, it wasn't happening real quick. So they need to do it in the off hours.
Any more questions?
Looks like not. Hopefully you guys are doing well.
Here we go. We got one from Suzanne. I just read the response to an open ticket I have, but I'm still confused on how to resolve this discrepancy. A student completed all of their testing on a merged mid. The SSID number that the student completed testing on was retired. The 2 mids were merged. Our CAS coordinator opened a ticket with ETS, and they said to keep the retired ticket.
Well, so assuming that your student tested on only one of those SSIDs, and from what I'm reading, it sounds like that happened. There isn't actually anything you need to do, right? So the student tested on one of the SSIDs, you merged the data, and therefore the English language acquisition status gets merged to the SSID that is retained, and then ETS gets a nightly file of retired SSIDs. And so if the student's scores are affiliated with a retired SSID, they just, in the back end, they swap it out. It happens behind the scenes. Now, if they were tested under both SSIDs, that's a little more some more work.
So, and the system doesn't give you a choice. The system's going to decide what SSID to keep or not. So for ETS to say, keep the retired SSID, you can't do that. For the time being, maybe it's still associated to the retired one, but eventually it will be, the results will be put on the new one, right, Brandy? Just how
Yes.
quickly ETS does that, we don't know.
Yeah, well, they get the file every night, and they have resumed processing the file nightly. So we're sort of back to status quo prior to post redesign, which is ETS will process the file in TOMS, but it is not put into the test delivery system for 48 hours. But they are getting those nightly files.
All right. Bhavini says, sorry if you already covered this. Are we able to upload source files now? Yes, you should be able to upload source files. There may be some errors, but maybe you won't get some errors. But there shouldn't be nothing really stopping you from uploading the source files. Yen asks, actually not because we are doing good, Martha, because we are not doing much, just waiting bugs to be resolved so we can unleash the questions.
I figured as much after I said that. You hit the nail on the head, Ren.
Suzanne said, the problem is, I was told it is that our completion rate is down. I just found out the student also took part of the test under the original SSID number. Oh, so messy.
Yeah, that's really messy. And what, Suzanne, it depends on whether or not this is the initial or the summative, but the summative window is done, right? So that the administration year is probably done. And so you can't even submit a stairs incident. Like once your testing window is closed, then there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Nancy asks, how do you fix a sync error? Do we have a training videos on submitting those and making corrections?
Well, don't we have a variety of sync validations? So it depends on which error are you talking about. The 507, 509, we have a defect on the 507, but the 509 has to do with that 0.
Yep.
You guys are full of humor today, so that's a good sign.
Call a plumber.
Get your sink fixed.
Well, Nancy, if you want to put a ticket in for the error you're getting, you can put my name on it and I'll take a look. And I'm not sure if you're asking about a specific error or how do you fix sync errors in general. So I thought we had a video available that kind of covered the process.
Cert errors, right? So I don't know if it's a cert, something that reflects the sync.
Alex not feeling very young today. Last week it was Alex Young Rika's.
Keeping us on our toes.
Well, we got 9 minutes, folks. If there's no more questions, we can call it a day. We'll be back Wednesday and hopefully a lot of fixes have gone in and you guys are tell us how good everything's working.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you guys. We'll be
Bye.
back